Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the August 20th meeting of the Logan Municipal Council. Thank you for all of you for being here, and to those of you who might be watching us on YouTube, appreciate it. I'd like to introduce Christine Holt, who I don't even know what your title is with the Cache Valley League of Women
I'm on the leadership team.
Leadership team, but Christine is going to do our opening for us this evening. Thank you, Christine.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm Christine Holt, and I'm currently on the leadership team for the Cache Valley League of Women Voters, and I've met many of you, but not all of you. It's very nice to be here. You're probably aware that a lengthy struggle in the United States to allow women to vote was begun in the 1800s. The 19th Amendment granting women the right to vote was finally ratified in 1920, almost 100 years later. It states very succinctly, the right of the citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. The struggle for the vote was long and often fierce. Many of the original suffragists did not themselves live to vote. The National League of Women Voters was begun the same year as the 19th Amendment was ratified. Its founders saw a need to educate the women to take part in the political process, something we're still doing more than 100 years later. Next Monday, August 26th, is Women's Equality Day, commemorating the passage of the 19th Amendment. You might be asking yourself, well, what is the League of Women Voters? One person that I met one day that I told I was going to the League of Women Voters meeting, she said, isn't that just a bunch of old ladies who make trouble? I said, well, yeah, maybe.
Yes.
Right. But hopefully we make trouble in a good way and for a good reason. The League is a nonprofit, nonpartisan citizens organization that has fought since 1920 to improve our government and to engage all citizens in the decisions that impact their lives. Currently, the League works to increase understanding of major public policy issues and to influence public policy through education and advocacy. We operate at national, state, and local levels through more than 800 state and local leagues in all 50 states and all U.S. territories. Fittingly, on this coming August 26th, Women's Equality Day, the League of Women Voters of Cache Valley is hosting a candidate forum for county and state candidates for public office, moderated by the local host of UPR, Tom Williams. We're very excited about that. Some of you participated 2 years ago in our forum for city candidates, for which we're very grateful, and we hope you'll join us again and help us spread the word. The local league is also active registering new voters, participating as poll watchers, and hosting workshops and webinars on issues of interest to Cache Valley. If you'd like to find out more about our activities, we do have a Facebook group page, League of Women Voters Cache Valley. To open this meeting, I would like to share an inspiring quotation from Susan B. Anthony. It was we the people, not we the white male citizens, nor yet we the male citizens, but we the whole people who formed this union. Men, their rights, and nothing more. Women, their rights, and nothing less. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Christine, before you step away, what time and place on Monday?
The time is 5:30 on Monday, this coming Monday, at the First Presbyterian Church, south entrance. It's the upper level meeting hall in the church. And at 5:30 will be the county candidates, and then at 7 o'clock will be the state candidates that have agreed to come and speak. So we hope for a very lively evening. On our Facebook page, you can submit questions in advance. We're going to try to have all the questions accessible to the candidates so they can think about them a little bit before the forum. So hopefully we'll get a good turnout. Thanks.
Thank you so much for coming, Christine. I will now move on to acceptance of the minutes and approval of the agenda. If we have a motion.
I'll move to accept the minutes and approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any corrections to the minutes or changes to the agenda?
I didn't see any.
Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are accepted and the agenda is approved for this evening. Just a reminder, Logan City Council meets every first and third Tuesday of the month at 5:30 here in the council chambers. Our next meeting will be September 3rd, the day after a holiday.
September. I can't believe it's September.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? So hope to see all of you back here then. At this time on our agenda, we always open up the floor for questions and comments for the mayor and the council. If anyone would like to come and address or raise an issue, you're welcome to come up to the podium. We ask, make sure you sign in at the sheet by the door. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. State your name, where you live. Always ask that people be respectful, and please ensure that whatever you're bringing forward to the attention of the council is relevant to us, and we'll turn over any follow-up to staff as needed.
I'm Josh Molitor from Logan. Wanted to tell you guys that since I've been coming here for the last, I think it's about 3+ years, I've seen a dramatic change in our representative body here. I've seen a lot more transparency, a lot more cooperation, and actually just a lot more fun with you guys. I've seen a transformation of a representative body that in a positive manner, in a very positive manner. So I just wanted to say thank you guys for representing. So.
Thank you so much, Josh. That means a lot. Thank you. I appreciate that. Anybody else? Okay, seeing no one, I will turn it back to Mayor Daines for the mayor and staff reports.
Good. I have the item on the agenda and then just one question for council. We are going to reappoint a number of members of our Public Art Advisory Board, if you concur with that. The candidates for reappointment are Katie Lee Coven, Mark Lee Coven, Marissa Vignier, Andy Jorgensen, Caroline Lavoie, and then we have a new appointment, John Weston Scow. Again, this group has really provided some great advice and services. We've launched on some public art projects and hung some new art in the library and so on, and we've really appreciated their advice. So we're just asking for your ratification. And then I have just one other quick item.
Mayor, may I ask a question? That sounds like everybody.
And we realized that we should have staggered the terms.
Okay.
We appointed everyone at once and we had that discussion. So with this reappointment, we are going to start staggering the terms. So again,
Because
the
if
rotation
somebody,
comes.
it's like, oh, none of us want to do this anymore, and then we all of a sudden don't have an art committee.
Right. And we did have someone who needed to step down for personal reasons, and so that's why we have one new appointment. But again, we realized that
So you're just going to straw it, so
yeah,
some of them have 1, some 2, some 3?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. So
Okay.
then.
And then will they
rotate them.
serve as long as they care to?
I can't remember, what do the bylaws say? Do you remember, Aaron?
The bylaws allow for 2 terms, so this will be a transition period over the next through this appointment.
And are they 3-year terms or 2-year terms?
They're 3-year, but we start staggering in about 18 months
Okay.
to start cycling people through.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious.
You're absolutely right.
Good question.
So people might recognize John Weston Scow's name. He's been a teacher at Mount Logan Middle School.
Yeah.
Gosh,
For a year or
For-
2.
He's now retired, so he has some time to do things like this. So we've just got a great wealth of experience on this committee, and we appreciate people's willingness to donate their time.
Yeah, it's been great.
do we have a motion?
I'll move that we approve the reappointment of the group for the art board.
I'll second the motion.
Right. Any conversation? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? They are reappointed and appointed.
Great. All right. So that included the new appointment. And we did send out an email, but just one question for council. As you know, the renewable the RESAP Board, Renewable Energy Sustainability Advisory Board. We've worked with them over some time to create this resource plan, which gives options for, if the city were to get to 50% renewable, 75% renewable, whatever, how much would that cost? What are the options? That study is coming to a conclusion. They expect to wrap it up by September. And part of their, what the proposal, or what the study included was 2 presentations. They'll probably do one to RESAB and the Power Board. And it's probably going to be an hour presentation. And obviously, that doesn't fit into a regular city council meeting. So our question to you is, and I did hear from a couple of you, would you like to schedule a separate kind of workshop type meeting that's simply noticed and open to the public to have the full presentation? And we were wondering about maybe an alternate Tuesday night from our city council, so you could really hear or Mark can summarize it and bring you a 10, 15-minute summary in a regular council meeting if you'd prefer.
Is it possible for the RESAB board for us to have a workshop and they only do it once?
Yeah,
With the RESAB board as well?
That was an idea too, that we could invite the RESAB and Power Board again if we had an evening meeting or something, if that meets for, if that works for their schedule.
And that way they wouldn't have to,
Meeting, yeah.
yeah.
So
I'd be okay
we're
with
just
that.
wondering what's your preference, and again, if you'd like to do that, we'd probably schedule it later in September to make sure they're completed, but we get that on people's calendars just so they know,
Personally,
It makes sense to combine it.
Right, but personally, I would prefer a workshop where it's a combined.
Yeah, so you would like to, and you did tell us you'd like to see, and I think Mark mentioned you'd like to see
Yeah,
the full.
I'd like that too.
And again, you two could also come if the rest of the council doesn't want to do the full meeting. You two, because we can have 2 at a meeting, without a publicly noticed meeting, you could come to the RESAB Power presentation too, if that works better for the group.
Mike and Ernest, did you have a preference in
I
terms
don't-
of wanting to see the whole thing or just wanting?
I mean, I would like to see the whole thing, but being on the RESAB board, I think I'll end up seeing it either way, so I'm okay.
You're on the reset board, right? So then
And you're on the Power Board. So if the
And
rest of you would
we'll
like to see it, I'm more than happy to come to another meeting and do a workshop and see it.
Well, I
then.
was thinking we
Why
could
can't we do it all
combine
together?
it. Yeah, everybody would see it once.
Instead of having to do it multiple times.
I'm happy to do it twice or once.
And again, I think it will be like a Zoom presentation, is my understanding, because the consultants are not local. So again, it's,
Well, it seems to make sense that if we could do it noticed as a full council workshop with the RESAB and the Power Board present, that would make the most sense.
okay.
And we can just do it over there, right? Because we can Zoom that one because Todd knows how to do that really well.
Do it over,
We can,
conference room?
yeah,
Yeah.
the screen
Yeah.
Zooms does the
or
Zoom.
we're set up here. All right, we'll come up with a date when they'll definitely be finished. And then it sounds like the group would prefer maybe a Tuesday night that's alternative to council.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's great.
we'll work on that. Thank you. And that is all I have for tonight.
Thanks, Mayor James. We'll now move on to council business. Our first item, as always, is a planning commission update.
Okay, well, planning commission was, I was not able to attend. It went till 10 p.m.
I saw it was a lively one.
It was a lively one. And we will be workshopping the Hillcrest Neighborhood Plan update and wireless tower land development code amendments. So those will be discussed later on in our meeting. Then the big item on the agenda was land development code amendment for home occupations, accessory dwelling units, and short-term rentals. They continue that till this Thursday, and I noticed on the agenda that it will be yet another public hearing, so it might be a long meeting again. And the only other thing that they worked through was the design review permit for Logan Landscape Products. If you haven't bought any bark this year, you might not know that they moved from across from CBTD over across 10th West into a field. So they did their design review permit. So that's all.
So is the rezone on First East, did that not go through on the
That-
Back up.
That's on Thursday.
That's on Thursdays.
Thursdays, okay, all right. Okay. All these agendas, I can't keep track of them sometimes. Okay, anything else, Gina?
No, not for that.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll now move on to our board and committee reports. Vice Chair Anderson, would you like to report on your activities?
I
over
would,
the last-
I would. Golf board met last week, and I was out of town, unfortunately, so I haven't got notes on that yet. Did meet with the Logan City General Plan Committee, and we're discussing hiring a new agency for the general plan for the future, so that should be really good. Solid waste did not meet, and historical preservation did not meet, so not too much to report.
Thanks.
Historic preservation did meet.
Did they meet?
Yes.
Did I miss that one too?
They did meet,
Yeah.
so.
What did we go over?
Historic preservation met and went through the presentation for a new house on my street.
Oh,
That's right. I did see that
one
one.
that
I was thinking that was
Yep.
I was thinking that was like
So,
earlier, yeah. So-
Anyway, it was kind of exciting to
Okay.
have, a new house coming downtown.
I saw the plans. It looks very similar to the one that they had there previously.
Well, except the other
Except
one
it's-
was
was a kind of a duplex, threplex,
So this is going to be a
fourplex.
single-family home.
single
family,
family house. Yes.
It was a nice place.
The only thing that was questioned was they can't have, are they aluminum? They're not.
Windows and doorway, or port ratings.
Yeah, but what kind of windows was it that they can't have? Oh, they can't have vinyl windows because it's in the historic
I've
district.
had that before.
So, other than that,
Did that.
Planning Commission, I just talked about. CMPO met, the advisory board, the executive board met. We met on Zoom. And we discussed the 10-year plan and did some budget stuff. It was just a regular monthly meeting, pretty much. I did, however, ask, because they will have they are doing some trading of dollars with UDOT, because if they use the money in one way, it becomes a federal project and it takes longer and it has a lot more restrictions to it. So UDOT will often take that money and they give us money at 80 cents on the dollar for the other money, or 80 or 75, I can't
I think it's
remember.
80, but then they administer it for that 20 cents on the dollar. They take care of all the federal requirements, which is
Well-
worth it.
Well, no,
Every penny, yeah.
they take that federal money and use it on a different project, and they give us state money.
Right, but I'm saying it's worth this.
Yeah.
I mean, in our view, it's worth it to give up that
20 cents.
amount
Yeah.
to not federalize the project.
And so they were discussing projects, and I did bring up, or did question because they talked about active transportation, and I would like us to keep in mind that there was a trail that was designated to go along Valley View Highway when they do the redo of the highway.
Right.
I don't know who is paying for what part of that, and if there's a chance to connect it in any way to existing trails in Logan, because I know it will only go from 10th West to Highway 23. So whether or not we can do some connections, and I just asked that question. I met with the mayor and some people from the Bridger neighborhood to discuss Bridger Park and their hopes and wishes and desires for the park. And Russ Aquino was there. Airport Authority Board met. We're working through the items identified by the consultant. The general plan, I missed the first meeting because my brain wasn't working. But I have had a chance we've had 3 firms put in requests to do the general plan, and I had an opportunity to review those and score them.
They were all good.
They were. And then last but not least, I went to the Water Advisory Board last week, and I had some homework.
For us?
No, well, it's an announcement, sort of. Depends on how old your house is. whether it will be homework for you or not.
Okay.
So the federal government, the EPA has required, they've had rules about lead and copper pipes. They're now moving that their new compliance regulations is they would like to identify whether there are internal pipes in your house that are lead or copper. So we're going to send out a letter to all the houses that might have that potential. And it is completely and utterly voluntary for you to do it. It's very simple. I went on and did it. You have to scratch your pipe where it comes into your house, and then you have to have a magnet and see if it sticks, the magnet sticks to where you scratched it. And you fill out a very short form. The hardest part is having a magnet at your house. I don't have one. So that
Not even on your refrigerator?
No.
Not even on the fridge?
That's a good idea. All the ones that I have are on the side of the fridge because my fridge is stainless steel and I won't stick to the front. But anyway, I didn't think of that. Thank you. So it's a very simple process. It does not require you to do anything. We are only asking that you participate if you have a house that is built before 1968.
Okay. So how about renters?
They will send it to the renters. They will send it to the people who live in the house.
Okay.
Because I did ask that question, because I said, well.
Because I'm a renter and our house was built before 68.
Right.
Okay.
So it's, you just have to identify where the water comes into the house, which is pretty simple to do when you go down in some scary basements like mine, and scratch your pipe right by the foundation and test it with a magnet.
Nice.
And that's all. And they're just assembling that information. Where they didn't want people to feel like, oh, it's scary bad. It's just an identification, that's all, for the EPA rules. So that is my report.
Thank you.
And I have the letter if anybody wants to read it.
Okay.
It's 3 pages, so I don't want to read it out loud.
Thanks. All right, so I had asked CBTD to come and do a presentation to us today because they had an open house, was it 2 weeks ago now, Todd? And I asked them to come and just talk to us about Connect Public Transit and the rebranding that they did so that we all have an understanding of that and some route changes that. Did I tell you I wanted you to talk about the route changes, or am I throwing that at you right now?
I do believe he can say it. no
We can
matter
talk
what.
about all kinds of things, yeah.
All right. But
Pull out our TV, please.
Members of the council, mayor, members of the staff, I'd like to echo Josh's comments here and thank you for your service to our community. My name is Patrick Jenkins. I am a member of the board on the Cache Valley Transit District, also one of the representatives for Logan City. So we have great things going on. One of the things we're talking about tonight, in addition to what else Councilmember Anderson would like us to cover, is we're rebranding the Cache Valley Transit District to Connect. As all of you are aware, words matter, and we want to convey an image of future and efficiency and effectiveness. And inside that brand, Connect, are some of those things, and also a future that helps members of the community see value in what the Cache Valley Transit District has provided for more than 25 years. So to give you the details, and because I don't want to answer hard questions, I brought General Manager Tom Buehler here, and he'll walk us through some of the things that are going on at Connect.
Patrick can answer all the detailed questions. You know that.
thanks,
so.
Patrick.
He's a fantastic board member, as are your other 3 board members there. You have a great board representation. So one of the things that really, this is, it seems like we just barely did this, right? But this has been years in the making, this rebranding. In 2020, we started the Loop service that connects the northern shopping, southern shopping to the university to downtown, right? And then in 2021, we started our real-time tracking of the buses, so you can get on an app or get on our website and you can see where the buses are in real time. And then in 2022, we started our pool service, which is our on-demand service to some of the areas that weren't really needing a fixed route bus, but still needed service. And so all of these things have been leading us to this point of, as Patrick said, how do we be deliberate in conveying what it is that we do? And for a couple of years, our motto has been CBTV, connecting you to the people and places that matter most. And at the heart of our mission, that's really what we do. We want to connect you where you want to go, what matters, whether that's employment or training or family or whatever that is. We want to connect you, and at the end of the day, we're about people. We're about the individual, and so that's really part of what this is. It clearly communicates our mission to the public, and as he said, it's future-looking, so that in the future we may connect to other communities that aren't necessarily in Cache Valley. We hear that request from people, and obviously that's something that we participate in studying and understanding how do we do that. And so that's part of this as well. And who knows, we might not always just be buses. There might be other things that we're doing as far as transportation goes, and so we can do something that's connect bikes or connect scooters or whatever that might be down the road. But that is a big question we get, why? And so hopefully that helps you understand that, and if you get questions, you can communicate that or have them call us. But we're really excited about Connect. We're giving away swag. We'll have some different things to get some swag out to some people. But we're super excited about that. Any questions on that? Okay. One of the other things that we just did, and we launched this at the same time as launching the Connect brand, is we made adjustments to 3 of the routes here in Logan area, Route 6, 7, and 8. They really kind of focus on southwest Logan, western Logan, and really the main reasons for doing this was improving the route safety. There were some congested areas that we were dealing with, and we don't like making left-hand turns unless there's a signal light, and so there are things that we could do that way. Improving the reliability, it's honestly amazing to me. So the Logan Transit District, if we go back in history, started in April 28th of 1992, started providing service. And at that time, there were 3 routes, 30-minute headways, right? And here we are in 2024, and we still have 30-minute headways. And you think how much traffic has increased. It is amazing to me that we're able to do this. But as anything, sometimes stuff starts to struggle because of congestion or because of maybe the number of people that are riding the bus and getting off at stops. Those things slow the routes down. So we wanted to improve reliability for those transfers at the transit center. And you're having new development that's occurring. And so like the Meadow Apartments, that's a huge thing. And prior to this change, folks were having to get off at 6th West and about 250 North, and they have to cross 2nd North to get over to the Meadows Apartment. Not really the safest crossing there. And then our goal is always within this urban core area to try to maintain 3 blocks, that someone's not going to have to walk more than 3 blocks. And we're not always able to do that, but we really strive to maintain this 3-block standard. And so I met with Mayor Daines prior to making these changes, and Mayor Daines is always so gracious to meet with us. The staff are amazing. We're often talking with them years in advance, trying to say, hey, this is something we're thinking about. We also put this out to the public and asked them, we said, here's the existing routes, here's the proposed changes, what do you think? We did that in April, had 30 days of public comment online, and both at the transit center they could give us written comments. And I was honestly shocked. I will say I was expecting a lot more negative comments, but 53 to 58% of the responses were positive, saying we love the changes. And then you have 32 to 36 that were neutral. I mean, so overwhelmingly, the folks were somewhat ready for these changes. We implemented the changes on August 5th, and so far the early data is that, yeah, the objectives are being met. We made those changes, and then we had the Cache County Fair, which is always a challenge. We had a route that went right there in front of the fair, and we were able to make a change, and it ran on time throughout the fair. We still stopped at the municipal, or at the aquatic center, I'm sorry, and still had close proximity to the fair, and still operated service. And so anyway, it's been really exciting. One of the other things that causes these changes to take so long too is sometimes we're waiting for infrastructure. We had these changes, ideas of these changes, several years ago, but we had to wait for 100 West to be built. And so we're grateful for the city and the MPO and all those that were involved in getting that built to help us make these changes. But so now we're hitting the Meadows and Zutah and some of these places that residents have been asking for, but we just didn't have the ability before. So we're really excited about these route changes. And Patrick and the board have asked us to here probably September-ish, we'll put out another survey and say, hey, how are the changes working for you? Is it meeting your needs? So we really want to engage the public and make sure we're trying to respond to those things. Questions on?
And I'll just make a comment. I mean, at the time we met, they weren't aware that we have the new receiving center coming in, and there actually was a change that would have taken the service further away from that. And when I brought that to their attention and just said, you know, there could be a receiving center and supportive housing, that would be an important, you know, transportation would be important, then they ended up addressing that issue, and you know, they didn't change that area, so we still will have good service there when that finally gets built. So we appreciate their responsiveness as well.
And that's why it's so critical to have great partners like the city and the staff, just to help us be aware of things and give us the opportunity to think about those things. So thank you for that. One last thing we just want to report on is, you know, we're close to completing our new facility. So our new facility will have bus storage, maintenance, administration, all under one roof. We're super excited about that. We're not going to have any electric buses, but the facility is designed with the ability to do that in the future, or other new technologies. We'll see where that goes. This, again, I really have to give credit to our board. We purchased that property in 2009, and the board has been saving a little bit of money every year, knowing that we are trying to figure out how to fund this. And so we did not ask for any tax increases. There were no tax increases with this. There was no bonding. And that facility is going to be paid for when we're completed. 55% of that from federal dollars. We've gone out and been very successful with competitive grants. 35% with that local share that's been saved up over the years, and then 10% from the state. But this is really going to help us. Again, from a reliability standpoint, we're currently parking the buses outside, and you imagine in the winter we have to wash the buses every day, or else that sodium chloride just eats those buses. And so we have to wash them, and then we sit them outside, and they freeze, and the air valves freeze open, and we have to warm them up for 20, 30 minutes just to get them operating. So we won't have to do this. And it's been really cool as we go in there on our 100-degree days. You walk inside that building, and you notice 10, 15 degree difference in temperature. So we're not going to have to heat or cool the bus storage. It will always stay above freezing. It'll always stay in a manageable level, but it protects that bus, makes it so that bus can last longer, helps us with the longevity. It's designed for growth. We have the ability to expand the fleet. Our current facility, we were beyond capacity. We were parking buses wherever we could along the fence line. The construction is scheduled to be done in January of next year. We're super excited about that. We'll have a ribbon cutting ceremony, but yeah.
We could have done it in the spring.
Well,
We dug it in the winter. And
we're talking about that, Gene, but here's the great thing. We have this huge facility that we can just move some buses out, and we can have a really nice event.
I know, but we dug it in the winter, and we're.
You know, here at Connect, we like to do things the hard way. We're up for the challenge. So anyway, we will see. We'll get you a date once we have it finalized. But any other questions or concerns that you're hearing about that we need to hear about?
When is the next bus rodeo? Because
When is the next
I
bus
want to
rodeo?
drive a bus.
You do?
Oh my God, it was so fun. And if anyone's not done it, it was like so fun to drive a bus.
So I will tell you.
Say that to
Can I ride off?
So we're happy to put one together. I actually just had Senator Lee's staff yesterday, and we put them through the paces and whatnot. We're actually hosting, there's a state transit association for all of us transit providers in the state. We're hosting that this year, so we're having a state bus rodeo in September. But we're happy to put one on and have the elected officials compete a little bit, see who has bragging rights. If that's something you would like to do.
So will they be able,
Oldest and the youngest.
are you going to construct the training course at this time, or is that just planned for the future?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So when we purchased the property out there, and we purchased additional property that currently where we do the training of the new drivers, before they can go on the road, they have to do what we call closed course. They have to get their CDL and stuff, but we start training them, helping them to get their CDL. That's all done in the same space that we're moving buses in and out to go into service or do maintenance. And so we don't like that because we're really super safety sensitive, you know, and so we purchased property that we could build a training course. We do have some funding, about $2 million of federal money to start the design and maybe even start the construction of that. We'll probably start that beginning of next year.
Well, you had the
Start that.
students, we had
We
some
did.
students that did do a design. I was
We
just
had-
thinking, once you have that done, you can rodeo any day you want.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you.
With
We
the
can
dance.
we can arrange a rodeo if that's something.
No, I mean, because I know you usually do a public one, and you don't need to do a special one for us, but I
We
think
like to.
just make sure we know when it's happening.
I will tell you, as a recovering driver, it's been a lot of years since I've
A recovery.
been in the bus, really driving, so I'm not like I used to be, and it's harder than you think. You know, you think, oh, and so we like to put a driver and let them drive through, and they do a great job, and everybody's like, oh, that's really simple. And then, you know, if you're like me, you hit a few cones. I mean, it's a lot harder than it looks.
Poor Sue Sorensen was just,
But
she was so upset.
So I'm a skier and I took a snowboarding lesson, so I could appreciate why snowboarders are horrific on the mountains. I could understand why they are where they are. And I think the same thing holds true for when you do the bus rodeo, because I think sometimes if we're drivers or cyclists, we have this perception of like what bus drivers should be able to do. So driving it helps you understand like the sight lines and how big it is. And I mean, I think it does. It gives you a better perspective and a better respect for what the distances you need to maintain, where you should be when you're
yeah,
in
and
your
really,
car.
I so appreciate that. We really teach them to drive defensively, and they really have to, you know. We put almost 1 million miles on every year on these buses, and the drivers do a fantastic job. They really do. And they're still courteous. They still, you know, they still answer questions.
So I will say that the only thing, my son, I told you that my two sons, and my son and his two sons went, because my youngest grandson is going to go to Green Canyon, and the only way he could go is if he could figure out how to get from his house in River Heights there by himself. And so he's taking the bus. So they did the whole bus route thing, they tested it, but the bus stops across from the ice arena and across from Green Canyon. And there's a 4-lane road in between where they have to go, where they're headed, and there's no crosswalk.
Yeah.
So,
So it's a fair point, and that's the thing. A lot of times we're after the fact, we're coming in after the design, and so we try to locate bus stops in safe places, close to things, and sometimes there's a compromise, because sometimes if we're going where the crosswalk is 3 or 4 blocks away, and people don't like that, and so but yeah, it's a.
my son said, I'll pay for the paint. Just put a crosswalk in there. But anyway, no, I think that's something you ask for questions.
Yeah,
So that's-
yeah, we can look at that.
Yeah.
Let's appreciate that.
Anything else for Todd?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for connecting us. All right, we will now move on to our action items. The first is a public hearing. Actually, we have 2 public hearings. So I'm gonna double check. Yeah, 2 public hearings tonight. The first is on Resolution 24-30. This is a budget adjustment of lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of things. So, Rich, do you want to walk us through this quickly before we open up the public hearing?
Absolutely. Mostly grants, 1 donation, and then 1 carry forward of state. It was a state grant that was received. So $18,000 for the police department for crimes against children. ICAC grant, we receive that each year. $57,336 for the Parks and Recs department. This is from a grant that reimbursed us for those funds, so we're carrying forward and appropriating those funds. $40,000 for a Cigna Health and Wellness grant, $390,000 for after-school programs, $8,080 for the fire department EMS grant, and another $2654 for the communications center EMS grant. $350 of donated funds toward the La Plaza, $64,628 from the state of Utah to purchase equipment and supplies for EMS, $158,561 of a RAPS grant. That's our population split money for the July 3rd, July 24th, and the recreation center complex. Oh, I'm sorry. And for the Trapper Bridge Trail, $330,437, another RAPS grant for the recreation center complex. And lastly, $144,563 for the Blue Trail kayak. That's also a RAPS grant.
So did we acquired the RAPS grant for them to research about a new, were we the recipients of the grant from RAPS to explore the new rec center?
No, the Cache County Development Service is the one that applied for and received that.
Okay, so, okay.
Any questions for Rich before we open it up for public comment? All right, this is a public hearing. If you would like to speak to Resolution 24-30, please come to the podium, state your name, where you live, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Well, you were the oracle that said Dr. Yost would be here. So Dr. Yost is here. I'm Dr. Yost, Gail Yost, and I live in Logan. And I'm always concerned about after-school programs. I spent a number of years on the original Boys and Girls Club board, and when we were still trying to get summer programs as well as after-school programs. I remember from 2 weeks ago that the after-school programs aren't connected, these particular programs aren't connected to the other two schools. And I'm wondering why that is. Why 4 of our city schools are in one grant and the other 2 are not, or in a different grant, because school starts the same for everybody. And I'm wondering how many children are being helped through these after-school programs, not necessarily per school, but en masse. How many kids are in need of that extra homework help, or just having somebody to talk to play with, to socialize? Do they get to socialize freely, or do they have to work in a school-like place where they can't just talk to somebody that they want to, or walk over to somebody that they want to? I'm just wondering how the after-school programs work, and if some of these kids are there because there's nobody at home after school until this program is over itself. So I'm asking lots of questions about how and why and how many and when, because our kids are our future. And we need to make sure that they're safe, that they can socialize easily. Because kids that don't get to socialize come out with bad behaviors later on. Either too shy, and shyness itself isn't bad, but when they're too afraid to talk to people, or they're too much of a bully, or too pushy with other people. A lot of it has to do with what happens once they get to school. I know we could identify those who were bullies, even in kindergarten. Those who were scared of things, even in kindergarten. And some of this, the bullying, goes all the way through high school. And we want to stop this kind of behavior, and the best way to do it is to teach appropriate behavior without stifling the kids from socializing. It's really important that they socialize in a way that is not so rigid as a school day. If that makes any sense. But that's what I'm asking about, because these are things that are important to how these kids learn from others outside of the family.
Thanks, Dr. Yost. Anybody else like to speak to Resolution 24-30? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the council for action. But before we do that, Russ, is it possible for someone to connect with Dr. Yost to give her that information?
Yeah, I was thinking
that.
we'd maybe have Tara, who runs the program, I'll either get an email, I assume you signed in, does that have an email or phone or something? We could have Tara reach out and tell her a little bit about how the program runs.
Sure. Just for clarification, the last time I was here, the question was raised. We have 2 different grant cycles that we work with, and so I misspoke to this one. This grant actually covers all 6 schools, including Wilson and Hillcrest. We just inadvertently forgot to put those 2 on here. We do have also a federal grant that we used to receive in the past, and the federal grant was on 2 different schedules because of when the schools applied for it. But this is a state grant. You probably don't recall this. This grant was part of a 3-year grant that totaled $1.1 million. And this is the 3rd year, the last year of that contract. So that's why you're seeing that now. But it does cover all 6 schools.
Does it have a potential to be renewed?
We ask for it. It's really up to the state whether they're going to make that available.
Yeah.
But it's been very beneficial, of course, to the program. To your question about how many are being served through the after-school program, a little over 600 kids.
That makes a big difference.
In this, certainly, in the 6 schools that are being served.
Would I be welcome to come and visit each school?
Anytime, as you could imagine, they do have their protocol. So even when the division manager and myself make visits to the schools, they need to know in advance. We have to check in and all of that sort of thing. But I'm sure they'd be happy to accommodate you. We just need to make that arrangement in advance.
See how the kids are doing.
Sure.
Thanks, Russ.
I'll move we approve Resolution 24-30.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of Resolution 24-30, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Resolution 24-30 passes, thanks to Richard's fantastic explanation of what was in there. Our next public hearing is a resolution regarding our fire rescue services standby and EMS billing rates. This is Resolution 24-31. Chief Thompson, anything you'd like to address before we open up the public hearing?
No, unless there were some additional questions from workshop last week. I had a great conversation with Councilman Johnson on clarifying a few things. So hopefully that was helpful. And
Very helpful, thank you.
Good, good.
Anything you want to share from that conversation with folks here? Or?
Do you want to summarize it briefly? Do you want me to?
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick summary. So we focused on, you recall, is we have obviously our EMS supplies, our rates for billing through the ambulance, right? So the fire department, as you know, is chopped up into some pieces. I kind of look at it, those pieces of the pie, right? We do public engagements in terms of tours. We do business inspections, but really the meat of what we do, as we know, is about 85% EMS. About 15% is kind of mixed in fire type services, and then we've got this unique service that I categorize as rescue, because it truly is, which includes ice, swift water, structural collapse, trench, and of course vehicle extrication. Okay, so what we focused on is an area to recoup, and ironically that area is truly where a lot of the expense comes for expensive equipment for the fire department. It's expensive to maintain, you have to keep it current, for example ropes, jaws of life, we utilize e-tools, and all of those are used on a regular basis on extrication and training. So as we looked at the fee schedule, that was an area that was new for Logan I kind of brought up. It's an area that is normal practice in the fire service because it is a specialized rescue. As I use my example, some of our comparison departments are over $1,600 for extrication. We're proposing $150. So the thing that Councilman Johnson and I talked about, which I really appreciated, was, will that move the needle? So just to give you an example, in 2023, just vehicle accidents alone in our zone, there was 328 accidents, okay? This year, we're on pace to have 420. That doesn't include auto peds. That is just vehicle on vehicle. Things that would actually cause require a cleanup or the jaws to be used in those circumstances. So obviously, we're just trying to help cover the cost of maintaining those tools. For example, the cutter, the spreaders, the tips that are damaged, if they're tweaked on an extrication, that can be in excess of $10,000 to our taxpayers to repair. So we can debate, I guess, hey, should that be included in the cost? Because Logan City citizens, they pay for a premium fire department. They get Class 2 service, critical care paramedics, and most of that's provided just with our sales tax revenues and our EMS fund. So this is an area we felt like we can help both parties there. Auto insurances expect those types of charges for extrication and cleanup and hazmat. We're proposing a very small amount comparatively, and it would move the needle for us. For example, even if we could only bill $200 on 200 of those extrications, that's $20,000 that would go towards that part of our the services that we provide through that rescue area of helping maintain those tools, training, things like that. So that was probably the biggest, that was where we focused the most. Unfortunately, we wish supplies and EMS didn't go up. Cost of medications, we wish they didn't go up, but they do, as we know. So, and then of course we just brought our fees for standby, which is non-EMS or non-emergent. It's usually additional things like your fireworks standbys, marathons, things like that. We just moved those into alignment with state rates. So those were not big moves; they were just smaller moves. We really focused on that rescue area, but being a new thing for Logan. So hopefully that sheds some light.
And if I could just add, the concerns that I went to Chief with was, and it's a lot of me not understanding the fire department as much as those who do it every day. But I looked at it as when we're paying our taxes as citizens, there's those essential services that our city provides, public works, law enforcement, fire department. And I was a little concerned as a new fee, these extrication fees, being something that we're charging for. Is this a path we're starting down to where the fire department's charging for services, which I didn't love the idea of. But after our discussion and kind of understanding that the fire department views rescue as very different than fire services, and that they're not looking to charge someone if their house burns down, just recouping those costs on tools for extrications, and that it's being billed to vehicle insurance, not to citizens. They won't go collecting from citizens if insurance doesn't cover it. They'll just take what the insurance will cover, and if the insurance won't cover it, then it is what it is.
That's correct.
And so that was kind of my concerns is are we going to start charging for other services? Is this kind of a dipping our toes in the water we don't want to go into? And, where's that collection actually coming from? And so he was able to answer all my concerns there. And honestly, after our discussion, I have no issues. He answered most of them, and I understand it a lot better now. And it was a good chat.
Thanks, Chief. Do you know by any chance, what percentage of accidents involve Logan residents versus people that don't live in Logan too? Because I know we are the byway between the north and south end of the valley, from people in Idaho, from people in Tremont. And so I'm assuming that, yes, we provide fire service to our citizens, but those services are frequently, I'm guessing, provided to people who are not Logan residents.
Correct. Yeah. Well, and you're right. I mean, it seemed particularly in the summertime and in the canyon, a lot of the crashes that we do extricate on are people that are from out of town. I don't have the exact percentage of what it is. It seems like in a lot of those, it is people from not around here, but, at times it certainly is. But, I'd be happy to get that, the percentage, but it's people from all over.
Yeah, just a curiosity.
Yeah.
A good question.
No, excellent question.
Any other question? Yeah.
Question, if you know, about how much do insurance companies usually actually end up paying from these types of claims?
So in terms of what they'll allow, there are some billing companies that actually have a schedule that they follow. From what we understand, for example, North Davis's rate that I'd use, like $1,617, is following what they allow. Now, I'm not sure the percentage of what they'll pay of that. We haven't gotten that far in terms of looking at the data and what they'll collect, but we do know their standard practices is they would bill, and if, so let's say you had auto owner's insurance and they'll pay 80% of that $1,600. For North Davis, they would collect 80% of that $1,600, and that's all they take. So the percentages of all of the different auto insurance companies, I'm not sure what those percentages are. We're proposing such a small amount that we still have to see who will be willing to bill that small amount for us. A lot of them want to bill bigger amounts, right? It's in their best interest. So we're still shopping who could actually do this for us.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the chief before we open the public hearing?
I think so.
Thanks, Chief. All right, this is a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak to Resolution 24-31, please come to the podium, state your name where you live. Make sure you've signed in, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing no one, I will bring it back to the council for action.
I'll move we approve Resolution 24-31.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of Resolution 24-31, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution 24-31 is approved. Just keep us in the loop, Chief, as to when you find your billing.
Questions?
Like, if you want to shoot us an email when you get the billing service lined up, that would be great
Absolutely.
information to have.
You bet, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll make sure you provide, some of that data of the collections, because we're just new to it. We know exactly what we collect from EMS services, right? I mean, like we discussed, we can plan on about, usually being about 45%. But this is new, so we've heard it's much better than that. We'll keep you posted.
All right, great. Thanks, appreciate it.
Thanks for your extra time on that too, Chief.
All right, and now we'll move on to our workshop items. The first is a code amendment, ordinance 24-15. Hi, Russ.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great.
Would you like to walk us through this, please?
I would love to.
Thanks.
Looking at this photo, you're probably thinking I made a mistake. This is the xeriscaping presentation, but it's not. That's actually a cell tower.
Can we get one of those?
So that really fits in with our environment, huh?
Yes, so great segue. Context matters. At the Planning Commission meeting for Willow Park, we had a proposal for a cell tower. And the Planning Commission members did not like its proximity to the playground. And our current code didn't have clear language on how to cite that in a park. They went through a series of meetings and ultimately chose an area that was farther away from the playground, and they were able to work with the Verizon rep and properly stealth the tower. So stealth is the word that
Makes
they
it look like a
use to
cactus.
disguise. When you're in the desert, you use a cactus.
Yeah, but they aren't as good with a pine tree as they are with a cactus. A pine tree, you can tell every time.
Couldn't it have been
They
like
still
a
look
giant
pretty
candy cane?
So Planning Commission wanted us to make some code amendments, and we workshopped with that, with them a couple months ago. We added the playground. We also changed some of the language, and then last Thursday we met with them on the changes. So also at the park, the pine tree was chosen. So this is kind of the design. It is a winter picture. But we looked around and there's some other evergreens in the park, and we felt like the context was appropriate there. At the base of Mountain Road, there's a cell facility just north of the road as you head up the hill. And in that situation, they did not go with the pine tree because there was a bunch of deciduous trees. And so they chose a narrower, really dark brown color that blends in pretty well. And then recently, a co-location down at the rodeo ground, co-located on a light pole next to the rodeo arena. And so that blends in really nice when you're able to co-locate on existing poles.
You'd have whiskey.
The other part of the discussion was, how do you properly design the enclosure? So all of these facilities have ground equipment. Their bare minimum is a chain link fence, and that's not acceptable for our planning commission members. They would like both a solid wall and landscaping. And our current code just required a solid wall, so we added the addition of landscaping. And so it's not too many word changes. We did increase the distance from a house, so you cannot have a cell tower within 200 feet of a house. We defaulted the zone setback, or the setbacks in the industrial and commercial service area. We're really trying to encourage cell companies to go to those industrial and commercial service areas because we seem to get far less resistance. When these are proposed near a neighborhood or near kind of a gathering center, that's when we get a lot of resistance. And then we've increased the height in the industrial and commercial service area. And then we really, again, required stealth and co-location to be the priority. And stealth is getting better. Sometimes you can disguise it as a flagpole, as a large evergreen tree, or if you're in the appropriate climate, you can disguise it as a palm tree. Planning Commission recommended approval of these changes that will require more setbacks through the playgrounds, as well as those other items I mentioned, and they did that unanimously.
So when they were first discussing this, I received several phone calls that were of individuals who were extremely concerned that they were going to end up putting cell towers in every park. Did Planning Commission discuss that, or?
So the allowance in a rec zone or a public zone stays the same, and we can look at those case by case, site by site. What changes is the distance or the setbacks within those properties. Whether or not they end up in parks, there's a series of events that happen. First of all, they talk with the Parks and Rec Director, Russ Akina. They also have a lot of data that is put forth on coverage in the area and whether or not a park is even an ideal spot or not. But ultimately, the mayor needs to sign off and determine whether or not we even want it in a park. But that part of the code did not change because we just list it by zone, not necessarily a park. So we could have an open space area, a public facility, or it may be the golf course. It may be a number of different things, but it's either zoned rec or public. And they're conditionally allowed in those. And honestly, they're conditionally allowed in every single zone because the Federal Communications Act protects emergency communication devices, and cell phones fall under that. And so if they have to put it in a certain area to provide that minimum emergency coverage, we as a city cannot deny that. We can go through the conditional use process and try to, minimize impacts, design it in a way that is more in character with the area. But this is federally protected communications.
Some individuals claim that their medical devices preclude them being that close to that. So I don't know how but it's like, okay, the federal government says you can have it, but, Susie's gonna die.
Well, there's no scientific evidence as to that. Some people do claim that, but at least at the present time, my understanding is there's no scientific evidence to support
I don't know.
There's studies on both sides. There's studies that show there's zero impacts, and so it's inconclusive at this point. But these safeguards that we have, at least give that 200 feet from a home, or give that 200 feet from a playground or gathering area. So it should minimize health risks, if there are any.
And there's no notification required that says you're within 200 feet of a cell tower for those health concerns.
So we go through a public notification, transparent process to cite any new facility. So they will be noticed if they are within 300 feet of the facility.
With this addition of adding 2 feet from any playground pavilion or other similar gathering areas for every 1 foot of pole height.
Yes.
Would that have precluded the location that had the huge issue right there next to the batting cages?
Yes. So this top red
would have no longer
location
been
was their first proposal.
And that addition would not have let that location happen?
Correct.
Okay.
This one would be out of it. And
that one would be a no-go as well?
No, this one is the chosen location and would meet that 2-to-1 setback.
Did they choose that? So they chose option C, not B?
Correct.
Okay.
So this is the location. Option C is also the farthest away from the homes.
Right. I was just curious what that 200 foot looks like around a playground.
It's about the edge of option B and C right in here.
Okay. Thank you.
Did we see a lot of new towers go up when 5G connectivity became a thing?
No, we didn't see a spike in new towers, but they're constantly upgrading their equipment. So we saw a lot of old towers being retrofitted with the new equipment. And honestly, the newer equipment is typically smaller and more compact as technology increases. So that's a good thing.
So we wouldn't necessarily expect to see a bunch of towers try to go up as the next new thing comes along.
I wouldn't think so.
This 80 foot and 70 foot height, is that pretty standard for, I mean, we're going up 10 feet. I don't see
But
a huge
only in the
impact.
industrial zone, right?
And
No, it's for
commercial
all
services.
And commercial services, okay.
And then all of the remaining
yep.
zones start at 40.
You're right. I should read better. Thank you, Jeannie.
I just didn't want you to get all wound up about it.
Again, that's a way to
You always think I
encourage,
get wound up about things.
it's a way to encourage towers to be located in the industrial.
Yeah, because they want them to be tall,
Right.
because they're cheaper to put them up tall. I mean, they don't have to put up as many,
Correct.
so.
Yeah, fewer towers.
All right.
Any other questions for Russ? Thanks, Russ. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you so much.
In
Or 3
September.
weeks. Is it 3?
Yeah.
It's 2.
Is it 2 weeks till the 3rd, I think?
I guess it's the 20th.
All right. Hi, Aaron.
Hi.
So we are now going to workshop resolution 24-32. This is the Hillcrest Neighborhood Plan update.
Hello, Council and Chair. Thanks for having me to go over this with you.
You can call me Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Mike missed it. I said you could call me Madam Chair.
I've been looking for the perfect opportunity to call her Madam Chair.
Okay.
It's just very out of
I
character for
undercut.
this, so you're okay. You
It
stand.
seems like there'd be plenty of opportunity for that.
That's just really out of character for me.
Okay.
But she might hit you.
He's at a safe distance. It's okay.
All right, so I'm workshopping the Hillcrest Neighborhood Plan update. I have a little context map here. Hopefully you're all pretty familiar with where Hillcrest is. Pretty much everything east of 12th East, especially for planning purposes. We don't really incorporate much of what's going on campus. We really look at kind of that up to the foothills. A lot of great locations up there. We got campus. We've got Hillcrest Elementary School, Country Club, Lundstrom Park. All sorts of fun trails on the East Bench as well. So this plan update, so we adopted a Hillcrest neighborhood plan in 2017, which was kind of it
it was a more in-depth plan than this, obviously. It had much more outreach and structure to it. And this plan is really intended to build on that. And really how this came about is I was working with the Hillcrest Neighborhood Council. They wanted to kind of review where the plan was at. So I created an analysis of review of those recommendations, and we're like, hey, let's keep kind of building on this momentum after looking at those recommendations and see what folks think about where we've gone in the last few years and what we could prioritize moving forward. So that's sort of where this came out of. So it has some new neighborhood input, it has a few additional recommendations which really are intended to be supplemental to the existing plan. And Hillcrest has changed quite a bit since the plan was adopted. A few of these things were things that were kind of resolved through that original planning process where we put new development. Since the plan was adopted, we've had residential development in the gravel pit, 12th East multifamily, deer pen, all that kind of was sort of development that was guided somewhat, at least somewhat. Some of those conversations were even happening before that plan was in motion. But all that was actually developed and is being built out right now. 12th East infrastructure, that road's going to look a lot different here in a few months. New signal, new oval abouts and roundabouts. Logan Canyon Trail had some trail improvements in the area. Hillcrest Elementary completely changed. It's a new building, it's a new program, it's dual language only, it's not a neighborhood school, it's a satellite school. Then there's some planning and zoning questions that have come up, short-term rentals, accessory dwelling units. These really weren't on the radar in 2017 when we were looking at this and were adopted and have been looked at by council since then. And housing affordability has become a much greater issue in the last few years. And so, like I mentioned, we started with a review of the plan, the original plan's recommendations, and most of that is either implemented or in the process, kind of underway of being implemented. I highlighted a few here: the Logan Canyon Trail connection, 10th North sidewalk improvements. You know, we've got the 12th East improvements going on right now. There are a handful that haven't really moved forward. We've discussed mixed use in the neighborhood. We haven't really found, I think, it's finding the right context or location for that, and maybe the pressure to sort of push that, but it's kind of a mixed bag with the neighborhood on what we hear back from them. Housing rehab grants, we had more. Some of that's still around. It's with neighborhood nonprofit housing, but with affordability being what it is, a lot of those grants in this neighborhood just aren't really an option with who can afford homes here. Light pollution reduction, again, this is probably just finding the right project. Canal trail connections through the golf course, that's obviously just trying to bring a bunch of different, the golf course in Logan City to negotiate and come up with a solution. And new community spaces, there has been some movement on this. They just rolled out the green carpet, saw it at the open space at Hillcrest Elementary, which had been the old elementary school for years and years, but it's finally has a place to kick a ball around on grass now. The neighborhood branding, we just haven't, again, I think it's finding the right project. We've discussed how to bring this into maybe the public art arena and bring some branding to parks and things through art. There's probably more that can be done there. This plan update did include a workshop with the neighborhood in October. We also distributed a questionnaire to neighborhood residents. We got some input through that delivery system, and then we brought it back to them actually this spring and discussed sort of the recommendations of this plan. So there was a second neighborhood meeting. And then we developed some new goals and recommendations. Kind of break these down into 3 areas: zoning and housing, infrastructure, and parks and trails. So those recommendations for zoning and housing, consider expanding ADUs into the Hillcrest area where they're currently not allowed. This is something the council will be hearing more about. As this plan was under development, there's been a lot of discussion from council, from concerned residents about both ADUs and short-term rentals. So you'll be hearing more about this. This plan recommends expanding ADUs in the neighborhood. And then on the flip side, it recommends restricting short-term rentals in the neighborhood. Then also, and this is a carry forward from the previous plan, is prioritizing property maintenance and occupancy enforcement. There continues to be concerns from the residents about over-occupancy and sort of that absentee landlord issue of properties not being maintained. Infrastructure recommendations. One of the main areas of focus was the area around Hillcrest, especially now as that western half of that block is being finished up, and that is to connect the neighborhood better to that block. One priority corner is that southeast corner of 15th East and 9th North. Connects to an LDS church house on the south side. It's a main thoroughfare for students in the morning. It's something that requires some engineering and ingenuity because it's an awkward corner with on-street parking at the church house.
Yeah,
so we have
there's
to.
no sidewalk that goes through there.
There's not. It's an awkward one. So it'll take some work to try to come up with a solution. That is a priority corner in the neighborhood. And a lot of the other corners around Hillcrest have wide radiuses with non-compliant, non-ADA corners. So there's a lot of opportunity there to kind of start that as a priority and move out the neighborhood. 1500 North, 1600 East. This is an intersection that just kind of follows that old, this is how we built them in the 1960s. It has big radius corners, non-ADA compliant corners. So there's opportunities for redesign here to align, maybe bold out, provide marked crossings, and improve that corner as it's becoming a more transited area of town, especially with development in that area. And then one that's in the works already and was on the original plan as well is to complete a pedestrian crossing connecting the trails along 1500 North. This is up towards where the canal crosses under 1500. And that one is in the works right now. Parks and trails. One area of concern from the neighborhood was the northern connection trail between Aspen Drive and the Bonneville shoreline. This is a steep section of trail and prone to washout and damage. We do have a bit of Logan City-owned right-of-way there or land there that maybe we can meander that trail and contour it up and improve the access on that northern end. Then the other area of priority was Lundstrom Park sort of connectivity plan. This is implementing pathways throughout the park that connect the various features. Some of this is already funded by City Council through the CDBG program. Highlighted here, the western portion and possibly some of the eastern portion can be funded with what's already been allocated through CDBG. So we're excited to get some of these initial projects rolling in that park. And then the tough one, revisiting the shoreline Bonneville Trail and Canal Trail connection through the golf course. Again, that's going to take some movement from golf course to be willing to partner on some sort of connection through there. And that's the recommendations of the plan. I'm happy to answer any questions during this workshop.
So my understanding is a lot of that stuff around Hillcrest is because the crosswalks are still in place from the old placement of the school versus where the new school is. So I think you've been working with the safe walk to school. What's the name of that?
Safe routes, yeah.
Safe routes to school. And that's been integrated into this, correct?
Yeah, and some of the improvements coming out of that original plan, we were still guessing on that alignment, and now we know. I think we can do more.
Any questions for Aaron on this?
It might be late to bring this up, but I know the country club is doing some large renovations up there. Have we talked to them while they're doing the renovations regarding trail connections?
We talked to them long ago when we put the trail in, and it was sort of
But we haven't talked
no way,
recently
no how.
while those renovations have been happening.
Well, actually,
No.
there's been some significant changes in the ownership of the country club since those original conversations happened. It's now, so organization is reconfigured, so.
Right, but the tee box location has not changed.
Sure. There is a pesky tee box or two.
The cart paths are intertwined with the trails, so that's going to be more difficult.
I was just curious.
But yeah, there is a tee box right above where the trail would be that is it's blind too, so it would be really.
Why can't golfers just hit the ball straight?
They would actually, hitting it straight would actually go right at people walking.
Trail on the road or something.
So, anyway. Any other questions for Aaron?
With all my jogging on that trail, I'm yet to hear 4 left, so. That when Rich comes by.
Yeah.
Living along that area, we get golf balls in our yard all the time. Our house gets hit, and it is far away from where people are working. So golfers are erratic. I'll just put it that way.
They're trying.
Yeah.
Cutting some slack.
Any other questions for Aaron? No? Thanks. And I do know, I believe that the information on the fact that we're having a public hearing, we did send that out to the neighborhood chair and asked her to include that in a newsletter or some information so that citizens who would like to weigh in on this in 2 weeks.
Yep, I'll make sure that that's.
Yeah, I know I've reached out to her, but we might want to.
I think
just make sure.
I sent something out to the planning commission. I forgot to send it out to this one. I'll make sure it's.
Yeah, just make sure she's got that info. All right, great. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
All right, our next workshop is
All about Rich.
all about Rich again, Resolution 24-33, the next two, I think, our next 2 workshop items. So the first is a fund changes, and then the next one is on sped appropriation. So let's talk about Resolution 24-33.
So the first is request 3 items. Request to appropriate capital reserves for the fire station 71 roof replacement. It's now necessary to replace that to avoid other damages if we don't.
Remind us where Station 71 is.
It's University Station?
University.
Okay, thank you.
And again, that's coming from reserves. We don't love that, but there's no other option. $300,000, this is a grant received by the Environmental Health Fund for trees, and $9,920, the fire department received a grant for wildland equipment.
It's a lot of trees.
Any questions for Rich on this? Or for Chief while he's here?
It
Okay.
seems
Are they gonna replace
interesting,
that
that's
one?
the newest roof.
I know, it's hard to believe it's been 20 years.
But the one by the golf course is older than that.
No, the one by the golf course is newer. That one was done in probably 2015.
It's 1,000
And the one up at the University of
That's a lot of trees, $300 a tree. It should be cheaper than that if you're buying 1,000.
I know.
I remember when
I
they
argued
did
with the
it.
chief,
Like the
it
bigger-
can't be 20 years old.
The bigger.
Well, are you just,
I tried that once.
Is that going to replace this fall? Or is that going to be next year?
Yeah, I think as soon as they can get to it.
you want to answer that,
Oh, it's, I
Chief?
mean, not a big
When-
deal.
How soon are they going to replace the roof? It's like as soon as possible, correct?
Yes, they have to do it before it gets cold because of the, you know, the equipment and the materials they have to use. So they've committed to September 15th if this went through okay.
Super quick.
There was another company that was a little bit more than them, but couldn't commit till next spring. But we had Mike Miller look at it, and it's in bad shape. They patched it about the last 4 years. We're kind of at the end of being able to patch, unfortunately. And ironically, I was a brand new fireman when it was built. It's hard to believe that, but I was brand new with Logan Fire Department. It's gone that fast.
Wow.
So you're not brand new
So 20
anymore.
years for you too.
I still brand new.
Yeah, any other questions on that? That was one of the key things. We had to make sure they could get going before it got cold, so.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, thanks. Anything else on Resolution 2433? All right, let's move on to the unspent appropriations. This is Resolution 24-34.
I'd like to talk about each one of these in great detail.
Okay, take all the time you want, Rich. We want to make sure we all understand what we're voting on.
Almost without exception, these are capital projects that were cut in half. There are probably 5 that are not capital, but they're significant or related to a revenue source, and that's why we're carrying them forward.
Okay,
But almost all of them, it's just the nature of what we do. Our cutoff is June 30. That's also a busy, right in the middle of our busy season, so these are all bifurcated capital projects. So if you have any questions, great. Otherwise, our general rule is we will not carry forward operational expenses unless there's a super good reason. Capital expenses, however, we recognize that that's just the nature of the business.
so the public art program though, can you explain what the carryover for that one is?
Just, we had some funds that weren't spent during the year, so we'd like to continue to get that program going. That will be probably not something we'll pay for in the future, but just to get us first
In a
year.
way, is acquiring art a capital expense, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't
Yeah.
rise to the dollar level of a capital expense. sometimes.
Let's just don't look at it, no.
It's just such, it's like that program has so little that, if they finally accumulated 15,000.
Yeah. And I know it can take a while to find the right location, to find the right artist, yeah, so.
That's really on that one. And then there are a couple of them down in Public Works. Those are related to Google Fiber for the most part.
I think we should have hired our own blue sticker, as many people as drive by my house and spray lines on the park strip.
This is a specific revenue source that's supporting that function. Part of the revenue was collected last year, therefore we're asking for the budget to carry forward. That's the reason for those. And then there are some design expenses that are related to capital. Do you have one?
Well, one stood out to me, and Paul will probably just roll his eyes, but 21,974 for aerial photos.
So we take aerial photos every 3 years, every 2 years? It's been every other year. But we have kind of funds that we accumulate.
Just projects that we're working on.
Kind of the same way we do the election expenses. We budget $60,000. We only do the election every other year, but it costs $120,000. But from a budget standpoint, that's just a little bit easier. Same concept with that one.
Okay.
And then we have down in emergency services, we have some part-time funds that we're requesting to carry forward, but also non-capital. But the plan is just that this program is kind of being wound down in the MS fund. So requesting to carry those forward. And other than that, everything else is grants and capital.
Okay.
That was already budgeted.
Yes, those are already budgeted. Just so you know, my process as I go through this, number one, I check to see that it wasn't spent. Because we can't carry forward something that doesn't exist.
Good call.
The second concept is very much related. When you pass a budget, you as council know, we pass a revenue budget and an expenditure budget. The revenues support the expenses. Well, if the revenues don't come in, then what are you carrying forward expenses for? There are a lot of cities that just don't really necessarily go through that process. But this one is seared into our memories because of Logan City. We were carrying forward things that didn't exist and wondering why we're going further and further in the hole many, many years ago. So we take it very seriously.
Before we change.
We make sure the revenues actually supported what it was supposed to. And then if it's left, we will carry it forward.
Any questions for Rich on this?
Thanks for doing all that. Double checking that, we actually have the money before we carry it forward.
So one last item, just because we do this the second meeting in August and then we anticipate passing it the first meeting in September, we're right now in the process of closing up our books, making sure we have all the invoices. There will be a handful, maybe 2 handfuls of changes. Mostly these appropriations going down as we finalize the invoices came in and the amount for it is smaller.
Okay.
So just anticipate that. I'll try to draw your attention to it next time.
So what we're looking at today, in 2 weeks, it might not be 1.131,780,000, it might be 1.
We're looking at the exact same number.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the heads up.
It's like literally the one else.
Okay. There's no other questions for Rich on this. We will be complete with our workshop items. Is there any other considerations from council for this evening's meeting?
Cannot believe so.
All right. So I will then adjourn the meeting of the Logan City Council and will convene the meeting for the Logan Redevelopment Agency. So Rick, I'm assuming that, are you speaking for Kirk tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
Request, it's just a single request to carry forward $25,000. This was for the plaza. This will be the final invoice on that project. And we'll move forward and use it. that this is just some minor work that was done in this.
Spindler had to complete the screening of the mechanical.
The screening of the mechanical. Okay. Any questions for Rich or Mayor Dan on that from the members of the Logan Redevelopment Agency? Nope. Okay. Being none, I will adjourn the workshop on Resolution 2535 RDA. Thank you, everybody. We will see you all on September 3rd. Not me. Oh, that's right, you're not going to be there.
Jeannie's not going to be here.
Jeannie is going to be walking the Mackinac Bridge in Michigan.
Jeannie is always
I will have been done with doing that. I do that on
You always take it from me.
Jeannie's always